The second to last step in the probate process is the final account. In this video, I'm going to explain what you should inspect in the account you receive and the reasons you may want to object to that account. In this video, I'm discussing what to do if the account doesn't balance, if the trustee has used the wrong format for the account, if there is a suspicious transaction in the account, what to do if losses on sale are reported, what to do if the trustee didn't provide proper notice in advance, and finally, what to do if the trustee either left out an account schedule or used the wrong one. The very first thing to look for in the account is whether the account balances. If the account doesn't balance, that is a warning sign that you've got unreported transactions. Now, it is important that you use a little bit of common sense when you look at the account and check to see if it's unbalanced. If it's really a de minimis amount of money, if it's $1, $5, $10, that can be as simple as somebody transposing a couple of numbers and just being unable to find their mistake because they've been looking at the same documents over and over again in preparing the account. If, on the other hand, you have a pretty significant sum of money, so it doesn't balance, then you can be sure there's either an unreported asset or there have been distributions of some kind that you have not been made aware of. A large discrepancy in the account is absolutely a red flag and in most cases is worthy of filing an objection. The second item you want to inspect in the account is the format of each entry. Each entry has to report the date of the transaction, the person to whom money was distributed or dispersed, or from whom money was received, the purpose of the transaction, and the amount. What executors and administrators are prohibited from doing are what I call block entries. So a block entry is where somebody wants to roll together a whole bunch of entries into just one. So for example, where you sell a house in a probate estate, you're of course going to have the house go through escrow, and there are costs associated with closing. If you ever look at a final escrow statement, you'll see it all broken out item by item. You'll see the fees to the real estate broker. You'll see the taxes that are being paid. You'll see the money that's being withheld for specific periods of time. You'll see each individual charge line by line by line. If you have an account that simply puts those all together and says this is the total cost for escrow, that's improper. That is not how an account should be rendered. And the reason block accounts are a problem is it's a way for an executor or an administrator to disguise improper use of the estate's funds. Large numbers are large problems. If you see block entries, you probably want to object. The third thing you want to inspect are each individual entry in order to ensure that those entries are proper. Now, this is simply a common sense analysis. What you see in the account should be a good reflection of the assets that actually went through probate. Where you see money was spent for the preservation or the protection of an estate asset, it's almost certainly proper. Where you see money going out for questionable reasons, may be improper. If you see, for example, that the executor paid a plumber to fix a leak in the house, that's almost certainly going to be a proper use of the estate's money. If you see the executor paid his son to lay new tile in the house, that may be improper. Use your common sense to determine if this was an appropriate use of the estate's money. The fourth item to inspect in an account are losses on sale. Now, sometimes losses are unavoidable, and if that's the case, and this is absolutely going to be situation dependent, then let it go. If, on the other hand, the loss is puzzling, unexplainable, or you just simply know it's improper, then that's a good reason to object. And directly related to this are where you see an asset has been sold and there's neither a gain nor a loss that's been reported. That can be a way of attempting to disguise misconduct. Now here too, you've got to use a bit of common sense. If we're talking about something that on its best day was never worth all that much money, then don't waste your time and your money by objecting to the account. If, on the other hand, you've got a larger asset, particularly things like real estate, then that's something that you've got to really take a hard look at to see if it's worth objecting to. The fifth item to inspect is the petition that accompanies the account. Read the petition to see what actions were reported by the executor or the administrator during the administration of the probate estate. What you're looking for when you're reading the petition is to see if in fact you were informed of the different actions that were taken or the decisions that were made by the executor or the administrator where they declined to act in certain circumstances. If in fact you were given notice and they either did or refrained from doing what they reported in their notice, then that's fine. There's nothing more to be done. If, on the other hand, the account shows you that they did certain things, particularly things that caused losses, and you were not informed of those actions or the decision not to act in advance, then this is the time to address it, because the final account is going to be your last opportunity to take this up to make sure that the executor or administrator doesn't get away with their misconduct. The sixth item to inspect in the account are two schedules that appear in every account. The first is the schedule showing you the assets that were on hand in the estate at the date of death, and the second is the schedule showing you the assets on hand at the end of the account period. You want to look at the schedule for assets on hand at the date of death to make sure that that reports every asset that you expected to go through probate. If there's something that does not appear in that schedule of assets, then you need to understand why. Now, there can be legitimate reasons. You may have an asset that passed, for example, by a beneficiary designation, so it didn't go through probate. But if you know that title to that asset required it to go through probate and it's not there, there is a problem in the account, and now is the time to address it. In looking at the schedule for assets on hand at the end of the estate, you want to see that correlate back to the assets that are reported at the beginning of the estate. And here's what this really means in practice. If, for example, there's a house that's in the estate and it gets reported as an asset on hand at the beginning of the estate, and it's sold during the course of probate, then we know the schedule of assets on hand at the end of probate aren't going to show the house, but it should show the cash that came as a result of the sale. If, on the other hand, we've got, let's say, mutual funds that were there at the time your loved one died, and they're reported in the schedule of assets on hand, they weren't sold, but those same mutual funds don't appear on the schedule of assets at the end of the probate, there's a problem. Because the way this is being reported to you, they simply disappeared. If you have that kind of mismatch, it's important to object to that final account in order to make sure you can address those missing assets. If you have spotted trouble with the account, then it's important that you object. Here's why. If you do not object to the final account, then the court may approve that account. And if the final account is approved by the court, that's it. You have lost your opportunity to address the problems that you've identified. If you have identified a problem in the account and you're filing an objection, then the likelihood is you're going to want a surcharge to go with it. Now, surcharge is just probate court lingo for a damages order against the executor or the administrator. And in the next video, I'm going to discuss getting a surcharge against the executor or administrator. If you found this video helpful, then please hit the subscribe bell, leave us a comment. We'll be glad to respond if you do, and give us a thumbs up.